pray together. Father, we're so grateful of the glory that you've blessed us to see. We thank you, Lord, for this marvelous gathering of individuals who gathered here tonight to engage in some serious business, discussing ideas of those who are in political office and those of us who are citizens who are here to listen and participate. We thank you for this great privilege we have to live in such a great nation. Provides us as common citizens the opportunity to engage in selecting those that will lead the government and shape the policy. So we would invoke your presence tonight and pray that you grant us a spirit just of camaraderie and unity, even when there may be points of disagreement, but that we respect each other's views and opinions. So bless us together tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. On behalf of Grace Bible Church, I would like to welcome the Black Voters Impact Initiative and all the partners today that worked together here this evening to host this cannabis forum. We're so delighted and pleased that the Grace Bible Church provided this venue for this gathering this evening. I should offer a couple of disclaimers. The Grace Bible Church as a nonprofit organization, we do not endorse political candidates as a church. However, we do encourage our membership to engage in political discourse, to run for public office, to engage in rigorous debate and discussion to try to help to shape the policies that the people that we try to serve have to live with. And so we're pleased to host this event here this evening. And we thank all of you for coming out to be here. Just a couple of housekeeping issues. The restrooms downstairs, go out either door up front, and go down either side. Anyone who needs help navigating down the steps, just let me know, and we can provide you that assistance to help you get down the stairs and get back up the stairs without any incident. And so, without any further ado, I would like to introduce the people that will be down this event tonight. And I think Sister Christy Day. Okay, Dr. Smith, I don't see her. She's here, so Dr. Sneakle Smith. I'm sorry, Dr. I didn't see you sitting there. Dr. Sneakle Smith, one of our resident scholars, and a very, very close friend. We're excited about the initiative that she's leading to try to engage more of our citizens in the political process. Dr. Smith, it's all yours.
Once again, I'd like to give a greeting. My name is Dr. Charleston Smith, and I am a founding collaborator of the Black Voters Impact Initiative. We would like to thank everyone that came and all our host community partners that came together to create this space for us to learn from each other and also to be educated. With the Black Voters Impact Initiative, our goal is to embrace, educate, and get individuals out to vote, but most importantly, align us with the education and support we need to be politically active. So we know this is not a job for one person. That's why we always come together, teamwork, make the dream work. And so we come together to create these spaces to make sure that we are empowered and educated to be part of our political systems beyond voting. As you see, my shirt says, voting plus action equal power. And that's why we create these places to establish that. And so as we go forward tonight, I would like to introduce our two moderators we have for tonight. First, we have Wade Whitting. He is the host of the podcast of Our Voices. He is the president of the Charleston Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity and a graduate of Marshall University. He is employed by the state of West Virginia and an avid community volunteer. Originally from Washington, D.C., he now resides in Kanawha Valley. And we also have our most loving Karen Williams, who is a retired educator, having taught in the Kanawha County Public Schools and West Virginia State University for over 40 years. She volunteers for numerous community organizations, including Rise Up, Poor People's Campaign, and the NAACP. She is a member of the Gamma Chi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, and is committed to advocating for the needs of her community. Thank you for attending, and now I will turn it over to Ms. Karen Williams and Ray White.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I
for the Poor People's Campaign. And before I start any meeting, I always sing a song. So I'm going to sing the song to you. Are you ready for change to come? 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 Join with me on this next verse. Are you ready for change to come? 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 That is what we're here for this evening. Give yourselves a hand. Over the next hour, we have the opportunity to hear from 17 candidates running from various offices. Each panel will consist of peers vying for the same office. First, city council races are divided into 3 panels of 4 candidates, followed by a panel with city council ward races, then 1 mayoral candidate, and finally 2 state-level representatives seeking re-election. City council members will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves in succession, followed by 8 minutes of questions and answers. Your answers will be limited to 2 minutes. Our mayoral candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce himself, followed by 4 minutes of questions. And finally, our 2 state representatives will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, followed by 6-minute questions. The forum will conclude with us opening the floor to ask questions of any candidate that is attending. So we ask that all of our candidates be seated in the front, which I see we do, in the reserved seating so we can get the mic to them. Following the forum, you are invited to the fellowship hall to visit with some informal information booths, voting registration booth, NAACP registration booth, and local non-profit booth. Ray?
And some refreshments.
Oh yes, we always have healthy, safe, COVID-safe refreshments. So Ray, my partner in crime here today, we're going to get started.
Our first panel is the 4 candidates running for City Council at large. Jonathan Frazier, Chuck Hampshire, Emmett Pepper, and Jennifer Paul. I have the same question for each and every one of you. Okay, we're going to do introductions first. Ladies first, Ms. Jennifer Farr.
You're so
Good job.
All right, sorry about that. Hello. Hi, everyone. I am Jennifer Farr. I am, as Ray and Karen said, I'm running for re-election for Charleston City Council at large. I've been on City Council for a little over 3 years. things that I'm very passionate about is growing Charleston. I have a development background. I've been involved with community and economic development. I currently took the development director position at the YWCA. I'm also very involved with women and minority groups. I'm involved with the Links Incorporated. I'm involved with Alpha, a mega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha. That's a lot to say. I am also a mother of a 19-year-old son who is studying at Wheeling University, and he wants to pursue a degree in sports psychology. I ask him quite frequently things that he is interested in and what would bring him back to Charleston from a teenage perspective. We also talk about things that are important to cities, such as safety, things that are important, such as activities for young folks to do. I've been very active in nonprofits and area initiatives, including being the co-founder of African American Heritage Night, 10 and 10, which is an initiative to bring 10,000 people to Charleston in 10 years or less. I was awarded the Charleston Main Streets Urban Leadership Award in 2020. And then I was also a founding member of Better Together CWB, which helped service workers during the COVID pandemic to get immediate relief. I'm very thankful to be here. I feel like I am dependable. I only have missed 2 council meetings in the past 3.5 years, and that was due to 3 deaths in my family, including my mother, brother, and my niece, all within an 11-month period. And I think if you were elected to serve, we should serve. And working through pain helps you to understand that the true meaning of service. Thank you.
Emmett Pepper.
Thank you, Ray. My name is Emmett Pepper. I'm a father, and my wife and I are raising our 4-year-old son over on the East End. I grew up on the west side here. Eventually we moved to South Hills, so I graduated from DW. I believe in public service, and similar to Jen, I volunteered and worked to create arts institutions and to grow arts institutions in the area. The way I got into office was that under very unfortunate circumstances. John Bailey, a friend of many of us, passed away, and I was working really closely with him to, we did create a citizen-run entity that provides advice to the city for ways to be more sustainable and to save money for the city. And so it was through that civic service that I was already doing as a volunteer that led to me being appointed by the mayor. I've been in office for 6 months, and I believe hit the ground running. I've introduced 4 different bills, all four of which have been bipartisan, looking to find solutions. The first bill was on vacant buildings to disincentivize buildings that sit empty and aren't used, which hurts our communities. So I want to keep working collaboratively, listening to others, and finding the best advice from experts.
Jonathan Frazier.
Good evening. We're in the house of the Lord, so good night, God. And he's been working some things out. We're excited to be here. My name is Jonathan Frazier. I'm the new kid on the block. I am the transplant, the one that was born and raised in West Virginia, Beckley, West Virginia, and have roots and family in Charleston. And when we had the opportunity to move back, my family, Charleston was a no-brainer. There's a couple of things that I want to share with you about myself, and that if I'm elected to city council at large, you can guarantee. 1, I will be a father. 2, I will be a husband. And then 3, I'll be your council person in that order. I feel like in order to be able to contribute to community, you have to have a stable environment, a stable home. We're proud of my family that we have been blessed with. I'm a healthcare executive. I'm a partner with a private equity firm that opens up substance abuse and mental health hospitals. We take pride in that. Being an African American executive in West Virginia is something to be proud of. And we hope that that can becomes contagious to the youth. They can see more people like me and inspire to do those things. I feel like what I bring to the table as a CEO, as an executive, with over 20 years experience in the field, can help with our social issues that we're dealing with today. Everybody knows what we're going to be talking about tonight. I'm pretty sure it's going to come up. I have experience in this. I have experience in substance abuse, and I have experience with the homeless population as well as mental health. I think understanding how to deal with finance is something I also bring to the table as a businessman. And then also the aspect of community. I think community is important. I also coach in the community. I'm on community activists and active boards for healthcare. And I feel like I can be the candidate to help bring new ideas to the culture that we already understand and bring us into the future. Thank you.
Chuck Hampshire.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. My name's Chuck Hampshire. Thank you, Chuck. My name's Chuck Hampshire. I moved to Charleston 40 years ago. I came here I was raised in Huntington. Charleston is where I wanted to be from being a kid. And once I got up here, I spent 35 years doing work with grassroots and community organizations, not only in Charleston, but throughout the state, doing advocacy on a federal, state, local level on issues like consumer protection, environmental protection, fair and affordable housing. I served as the executive director of the West Virginia Coalition for the Homeless for nearly 5 years. I was also on the National Low Income Housing Coalition. I came to Charleston because I was interested in getting involved in issues and spent a 35-year career doing that and bringing people together to change public policy. That's what I want to do in City Council, is bring people in our community together to really deal with the challenges that we face. I'm also a small business owner. 20 years ago, my wife and I started a business on our kitchen table. It grew. 3 years after that, we opened a storefront in downtown Charleston, and frankly, I wasn't sure we were going to be there 6 months, but 17 years later, we're still there. I understand what it is to start a business. I understand what it is to run a business and be successful in Charleston, and all those are things that I think are going to be very important. This election is critical. I think we've never been at a time in Charleston like we are right now. We have potential to make decisions and changes that will affect the city for decades to come. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you all hosting this today.
All right, we're going to present the platform here. Ms. Carr, why are you running for office and what do you hope to achieve?
Well, one of the reasons that I'm running for office is I want to continue to be on City Council. I think with the COVID pandemic, we had, and as everyone in this room has, we were affected for a little over 2 years. And we started with some initiatives that were very important and dear to me, including the women and minority business grants that went out to help business owners that were women and minorities to be able to sustain. I know that Councilman Pepper, he has introduced a business liaison and initiative to the city, and I actually was the business liaison with the Charleston Area Alliance that actually went out to the small businesses, and I met them where they were, discovering the resources that they need. There's not a cookie cutter answer for businesses to maintain and to grow. You have to go to each individual one and understand the needs and the wants and the desires and pathways in order for them to continue to grow and develop. So I feel as though that I have that innate ability to listen to people. I talk less, I listen more. And I believe that in order to be a good public servant, those are two key ingredients in order for you to help things to grow and to expand. So for me, I want to continue down that path. I want to see more people that look like me in all facets of this city, in all facets of this county, and for us to grow and develop. But it's not just limited to that. We all have to be in an environment where we can agree to disagree respectfully and come to common ground in order for us to grow and to mature and to develop. So I believe with some of the things that I've already been able to do, I would like to continue on with that path. But also, I would like to be able to offer some intrinsic things that I feel that are some of my best assets to the city and to help it to grow and develop. Thank you.
Emmett Pepper, same question. Why are you running for office and what do you hope to achieve?
Thank you, Ray. I am office because I want to make the city a place where more of our young people want to stay or at least move back to. That's what I did. I moved away after I went to college and lived in the different parts of the East Coast and moved back about 10 years ago. And I want to encourage people to give opportunities for people to be more engaged and involved in the community. I think having, I mentioned before, having the green team was an opportunity for people to plug in. So I know Council Member Farr and I disagree on this issue, but I think it's great that we have a large city council because there's a lot of people involved. And the green team, I think, is an extension of that. We should have more citizen involvement, more opportunities for people to plug in and to be part of that process. So I want to be looking for that as much as we can and to engage with. So governments is just the name that we give to the things that we do together. And so we need to be doing more things together and looking for solutions. And I mentioned I have 4 bills that I introduced. 3 of them haven't gotten through yet, and we just introduced them the last month, so that's fair. But I have several more ideas I want to keep pushing for, things that will help families, things that will protect seniors, things that will make the city a better place for people to live in.
Chuck Hampshire, why are you running for office and what do you hope to achieve?
Thank you again, Ray. Well, I'm 63 years old. This is the first time I've ever run for office, so I've been involved in issues for years. And what motivated me to do that was really a deep concern of where we are, how we address the challenges. As I said earlier, I think the next few years are going to be critical. I wanted to make sure our city's the best it can be for our families, for our children, for our small businesses and the economy, and for our neighborhoods. I'm wanting to make sure that our children have the daycare, the after-school programs, and playgrounds, and the opportunities to stay here. And I think that's a recurring theme for all of us. We have to change the population decline. That starts by keeping people that are here, and most importantly, our young people, but also bringing others in. I'm running because too many of our neighborhoods have abandoned property, and quite frankly, what I've seen, I've done thousands of tours now throughout the city. I can project the ones that are going to be next, and I think we need to do something to prevent houses from falling into that area of disrepair, as well as dealing with the ones that have existed. I'm running because it disturbs me when I see people sleeping on our doorways and on our church steps when there's open beds in the shelters. That tells me something's wrong. We need to address that issue, and I believe we can simply. I'm running because I want to bring people together. I think that is the way to move forward, not by dividing people. Reaching real solutions happens through honest and respectful debate and hard work, and not through attacks and blaming and political exploitation. And frankly, I think I've seen too much of that here in the city, and I think a lot of us have. I want to see that we get down to business and look for real solutions for our problems. Thank you.
Jonathan Frazier, why are you running for office and what do you hope to achieve?
Why I'm running for office, it's a couple of things. I knew that I wanted to be a leader in my career path. It wasn't afforded to me in West Virginia during that time to become a healthcare CEO. Those jobs just weren't available, so I had to move away. And if I ever had the opportunity, me and my wife talked about this, to come back to West Virginia, we would make a difference. So we got the opportunity to come back. I didn't know what the difference-making caveat would be until we moved to Charleston and we were able to see some things that I know that I can contribute as far as with homelessness initiatives, with fiscal management, and equity. I feel like that is one of the reasons why I ran, to give a balance, to bring a balance to council, to bring something tangible to the people that feel like they don't have a voice. Now I know we're in the 4-year, blues of the election, and we're looking for answers. But I'm still hearing the pulse that some people still feel disenfranchised. Some people still feel left behind. People that look like me, people that I serve on a day-to-day basis. And I think with my experience, I can bring a form of equity to council.
All right, we want to facilitate some questions from the floor for panel 1. Does anybody want to have any questions for the candidates? Please step up.
All right, what is you guys' take on homelessness? Like, people with mental health who want to get better, not the people that we keep talking about out on the streets, that are just sleeping on the streets, people that really don't want to be homeless. How do you guys figure we can better their lives and get them back on their feet and bring them back to the society of Charleston?
I'll jump on that first. That's okay? I have an initiative I want to bring to council to identify the need. I think we need to break this thing down into tiers. I personally think it's a mental health issue. Primary, substance abuse secondary, and then indigent behaviors as well as criminality. If we identify those things and use the data that we need to garner, and I want to work with the University of Charleston, I want to work with West Virginia State to provide internships that provide that type of data and research so that we can actually figure out the number. Everybody can guess, but nobody really knows the number of the true homeless people that we have in the city. So how in the world can we allocate funds if we don't know the true number? As a CEO, we don't spend money unless the data allows us to move forward. There's a social initiative that needs to happen, but we need to work together and really drill down to what the need is. And then therefore, with the data, we allocate the correct funds, which makes us fiscally responsible, and then we push the data back onto the state so that they can help us in this initiative. Because it's not just a Charleston thing, it's a statewide thing. And kudos to Charleston. People will come where the resources are. We just have to identify in this tier system that I want to present to council, and then allocate the correct services and funding so that we can understand and be fiscally and socially responsible.
Any other candidates or jump in?
I'll jump in. Thanks for the question, Marquise. I think I agree that it is those three categories that you've been talking about. I think you're absolutely right that it's not just a homelessness issue. There's a mental health component and there is the substance use issues. I think we do have to look at this in a multi-pronged way. I agree. I also think that there actually probably, I don't think that there are more homeless right now. What I do think is that it doesn't look like that because services, as many of us know, have been scaled back during the COVID pandemic. And they didn't come back after, I don't know if we're still in it or whatever, and so we need to find more places for folks to go so that we can address this issue. And so that they aren't, so they have somewhere to go, and so that it's not going to be in our vacant buildings or the doorsteps of these other places that aren't the optimal places. They should have places to live. And so I think we have to find solutions in that way, and move forward with addressing that in that way.
Thanks for the question, Marquise. One of the opportunities that I have as the development director with the YWCA is that I write grants for many of the programs that we offer. We have a homeless shelter, and we gather data on a regular basis. Not only do we have a shelter, it's like a step process. I'll give you a prime example. There was a young woman that came to our Women of Achievement Awards. She and her family were chronically homeless. They were brought into the shelter. She continued to get her degree while her grandmother that raised her stayed in one of the homes for a 2-year period of time. She was able to get housing for 2 years as well. She was the first to graduate in her family, and now they have transitioned into home ownership. So when you have resources that are readily available that people can take care of, homelessness is not going to be eradicated in 2 months. It's not going to be eradicated in 6 months. It's a long-term process. And, as Jonathan was saying, when you have data and you collect the data, but not only that, you talk to people and meet them where they are. This is not cookie cutter. This is not something that you can say, Jennifer Farr needs this, Marquise Washington needs this as well. Your needs may be completely different than my needs. But if we're not going out and meeting people and talking to them in their environment and saying, how can we get you into a warm place? How can we help you with the challenges that you have? Do you need medication? What medication are you taking? When's the last time you've been to a doctor? All of that goes into play when you're talking about homelessness. I don't think anyone sets out to say, I'm going to sleep on the steps. something has happened within their lives in order for them to be there. And I think one of the things that we found out during the COVID pandemic, some of us are one or two paychecks away from being homeless ourselves. So unless we start taking that into consideration and not having this stigma that is attached, but at the same point in time, to separate those that are really trying to do things that are under the veil of homelessness that's not. So if we continue on with programs like this, I really think we can make a very stated difference, and we will see less homelessness and hopefully get to a point where we have as many resources as possible to help as many people as possible. Thank you.
I have a question for you all. So many of you are from South Hills or other areas. You don't live or spend any significant time in our communities. How can you govern and consider our interests when so few of our leaders spend time here?
I didn't get the comments, but I'll do it. Martine, thank you for the question. We hear about the homeless issue constantly, and it's on everybody's mind. There's an argument out there that less services is the problem. We have too much services for folks. Well, actually, we have way less services now than we've had in years. When I was with the Coalition for the Homeless, and this is a good number of years ago, we issued a report that predicted an explosion in homelessness because of what Jonathan was saying. Because the second equation of the mental health reforms that were going on at the time didn't happen. We deinstitutionalized folks. We tightened up commitment laws. We didn't do the community mental health that was needed to provide those safety nets to make sure that people got the help they needed. I think we're at a critical time now, not just for folks that are homeless, but I think our entire community is in a mental health crisis. Folks have been isolated through COVID. There's folks that are not getting treatment. I mentioned this at the forum a couple of weeks ago. I just had a window broken at my store, and I got a text. My phone blew up. A text: a homeless guy was going down the street breaking windows. Turned out he wasn't a homeless guy at all. He was a fellow that lived in South Hills. He was a former professional. He's had severe mental health issues for 12 years. So we have to look at to deal with the problem up front. We have to have the hard discussions. This is an issue that I think has been politicized in this city more than any, and that has got to stop. We have got to work on solutions. We've got to work together. We've got to better coordinate the services that we have available. We have to make sure that the beds are full in the shelter if there's people on the streets that are needing them. And we hear a lot about low barrier shelters and low barrier services. We already have low barrier shelters. It's in our storefronts. It's down in the streets. That is a low barrier shelter. It's not working. We need to make sure that we are getting people into the help that they need, and housing is the first part of that. I'm a big believer in housing first concept. The first thing we have to do is get people stabilized in that so we can deal with the rest of these issues.
Panel number one, thank you very much.
All right, we want to thank our first panel, and now we are ready for our next four candidates who are also running for City Council at large, and that Malone, and Corey Zen.
All
Let's
right.
give them a hand. At this time, Larry Malone, all right, we're going to move right along here. I'm going to make this a little more difficult for you. I'm going to ask you first just to introduce yourself, and then I want you to tell us why you are running for office and what you hope to achieve. That's a two-part question. All right? And since Ray started with ladies first, I'm going to have Becky to start first. How's that?
Excellent. Thank you, Karen. And thank all of you for being here this evening, and thank you for the Black Voter Impact Project. I am a former national president of the League of Women Voters, and I love it. I mean, this is what we've got to do. So thank you for having this forum and for being here this evening. I'm also the former president and CEO of the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation. Have an excellent person to succeed me. And I am currently the president of Charleston City Council and a member at large, and I'm running for my third term. I guess I'm probably the longest serving one that's going for re-election, but don't hold that against me. I have friends who want to know why, and I do that, and I'll tell you why. It has been important to me to be a member, and first I ran the first time because of that commitment to the community. I've been telling people for years, you need to register, you need to vote, you need to run for office, you need to step up. And when I retired from the foundation, as Michelle knows, I had a host of information like she does about the community. And people said, you ought to put that to work. And I thought, maybe I should. And I've been telling people all over this country that they need to step up. Maybe I ought to practice what I preach, and maybe I should run for office. So I did. Some of the things that I've done that might be important to service is I worked with Jennifer and I worked together along with the mayor and some of the other women in council, and we created the Women and Minority Grant Program through the Charleston Area Alliance. But I think it's important to create hope. I see I have 30 seconds. I think it's important to create hope. If people ask me what the most important issue is in this town, it's hope. We continue to look at things that we don't have and say, oh my gosh, we can't do that, we can't do this. No community, no organization has ever grown based on what it doesn't have. We need to look at what we do have and build our community on that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Zen, your two-part question.
Thank you so much. Mike's good. Hey, I'm Corey Zinn, running at large. I grew up in South Hills, went to GW. I graduated from W and came back and kind of fell into entrepreneurship. And luckily I had a safety net. I had a family that was fairly wealthy and supportive and willing for me to take risks. And they helped support me in my first 3 years that it took to get my software and creative consulting business on the ground. But most people don't have those things, and we expect people to create jobs just out of thin air, but we need to be supporting the people that, the small businesses we have here now. And we could be doing, I think the initiatives like the grants for minorities and women is a great start. I'd love to see more than just $5,000 to $10,000 grants. That is kind of a drop in the bucket, and we could be doing much more. We need to be spending more than we do currently on entrepreneurship, on small business assistance. I think the Charleston Area Alliance could be doing much more. $300 a month affordable rental space is great, but it's not an incubator. An incubator, is really going to
be hands-on with you, giving you everything that you need to get your business started. And I think a lot of people here don't exactly understand the international market, the technology, the intellectual property market, and that's kind of what we're looking at now. Is the people are leaving here because other cities have resources to connect to that understand some of these new businesses, that understand how to sell a T-shirt to Lithuania. There's so much opportunity here. We've been remote working here for so much longer than just the coronavirus pandemic, and we're so far behind, and I'd love to see us go further.
Last but not least, we have Sean Taylor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sean Taylor. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for inviting me to be here in your church. And this opportunity to introduce myself and reintroduce myself. I grew up on Jackson Street on the East End, the only child with a single mother who was an art teacher at Thomas Jefferson Junior High School. And when Thomas Jefferson was closed, my mother transferred to John Adams. So we followed suit, and my mother moved our home there to South Hills. Subsequently graduated from Vanderbilt University and also graduated from Western University College of Law. My career has included several years as your municipal court clerk here in the city of Charleston. Subsequent to that, I was your municipal court judge for several years. And during that time, I heard tens of thousands of cases involving people all throughout our community for misdemeanor violations, zoning code violations, building code violations, fire code violations, and also as part of those duties, help prepare our municipal court budget and also communicate with the mayor's office and other city departments to coordinate services and responses to those who needed help or had questions. I'm a former board member of Covenant House. I'm a current member, or board member I should say, of Manamune. I'm the current vestry member of my church at St. Matthew's Episcopal Church. And the reason I'm here is because of my 3 children. 2 young adults, actually 3 young adults, 2 in college, 1 in high school. And I want to be able to provide them a city that they want to return to. They see other cities for things that are more appealing, and we want to bring those back in here. And I think we do that through 3 main directives. The job of the city council primarily is to provide reliable services to their community, provide safety to their community, and help with growth in their community. And I hope we can address those. Thank you.
While I'm waiting for questions from the floor, I have a question that has been presented to me. And the question is, we need more of the pandemic funds to be applied to the needs of our communities. There appears to be a slow communication between City Hall and our communities. What can you do as members of City Council to ensure that communities of color and low-income communities get their fair share of the pandemic funds to improve their communities? Ms. Sepperly?
Yes, ma'am. I actually was the vice chair of the American Rescue Plan Committee, and several of those grants actually do go to the West Side, and they go for services for a brighter future, or a brighter future now. The West Side Health Right Community Clinic. They go to, I'm trying to think of all of the leadership program for young kids with recreational and other types of training, leadership training. There are the African American Pastors Association also receive money to do outreach and health programs specifically for people of color. And so there are several grants, actually, and I'm sorry I don't have the list with me, but I can share them with anybody that wants to see them. So there are significant dollars that I think are actually targeted from that very pot of money to the West Side. And I actually think what we need to do is actually spend more time together. And we don't do enough of that, and I'm just as guilty as anybody else. I get tired, I'm old, I think, okay, I think I got it, I think I can understand it, but I ought to be there. I ought to be there, I ought to be listening, I ought to be interacting with people, and I think we can totally work together to make that happen.
All right, Mr. Zinn.
Okay. Thank you. Great question. I do really, so I live on the west side. I've lived on Glenwood since 2017. And I came knowing that, a lot of people, unfortunately, kind of advised me not to, which was kind of sad to hear people say, because I knew a lot of people that live there, a lot of you now here that I see today. And what I saw, what I see in the west side is a place that has been kind of ravaged by urban development. There's, it goes to national, state, and city level, and there's kind of repercussions that we have to make up for at the city level as well as at every level. I do think it seems as if the city council is listening to some of the west side organizations that have applied for the ARP money. I hope that's the case. I will, I guess, use this as an opportunity to say I think we could be doing more to make the city council accessible to everybody. I liked when it was at the convention center, for instance. We had plenty of room, plenty of space for people, especially during a pandemic, to come and voice their opinions. I'd love to see more than 3 minutes or a different session, more town halls. But one thing, I think the city could be doing a lot better with marketing and communications, and I'm a marketing specialist, and I think the city could really benefit from that. I think a lot of times the communities don't see some of the RFPs that go out. I would love to make sure that Black communities and businesses and minorities are seeing these first, So those are some of the things that I think I'd like to see.
All right, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. This is primarily a question of communication. And that's obvious to everybody in the room, I believe. In my prior work as the Charleston municipal judge, and also in my current work as a lawyer, which is 100% dedicated to the disabled and has been for the past 15 years, the most common complaint that I receive is that they do not feel listened to, and when someone pays lip service to them and pretends to listen to them, they still don't get a response. That's aggravating. While I cannot tell you the details of any particular programs that have been applied through the grant program, my commitment to all communities in Charleston, be it West Side, North Charleston, East End, and also the South Hills, is that I will be available to you and respond to your questions. And when I get those questions, I will direct them to the appropriate person within City Hall that can respond to your questions. And if you don't get a response, I will invite you to contact me again. Part of my commitment to running for the City Council in the City of Charleston is I plan to designate every Friday at lunch to be in each of these neighborhoods on a rotating basis. Friday at lunch, I will be at a local restaurant in each of these neighborhoods, making myself available face-to-face to meet with anybody who wants to talk to me about an issue in their community or a need in their community. Now, while that may sound cliche, that's a commitment I'll make to you. My phone number will also be available. My email will also be available. And here's one thing I know, and I think you can relate to this. I presume that most of us are busy people, not only with our work, but also our commitment in the community and also to our children. When it comes to the evening time, I'm committed to my family. And my policy with my law practice is we get back to you within 1 business day. While I may not answer your call tonight, while I may not answer your email tonight, I will make it my policy to respond to you within 1 business day. Will it be an answer? Maybe not. But it will be the fact that I've heard you and I'm going to help you find the answers that you need. Thank you.
All right, this team here is going to get a second question. And as an educator, looking at our children here in Charleston is something that's near and dear to my heart. And how can we help our children suffering from the trauma and crisis in their homes and families and keep our children here in West Virginia. And guess what, Mr. Taylor? You're going to be first.
That's a hard question. In my experience, the front line of identifying children in crisis is their teacher. And I know this is convenient at this moment, but I grew up in the household of a public school teacher, not only my mother, but my grandmother. And I saw them go beyond their job duties within the classroom from 7 a.m. to 2:30 or 3 p.m. on a daily basis to reach out to parents and other necessary services in the community to help the children that are suffering. That's the primary contact in my experience where they can get help. If their parents need help, it's also an obligation, I believe, upon us that know them personally. Not only to reach out to them to ask them if they need help, but also to refer for services. This may be an uncomfortable thing to do, but there are times when we have an obligation as a citizen to contact Adult Protective Services, to help those adults that can't help themselves. There is also a time when we must, as a citizen of this community, to reach out to Child Protective Services, when we feel that children are being abused or neglected. Those are uncomfortable. We say we want to be involved, but sometimes we have to be involved, okay? That's that first line of communication, that first line of identification for those children that are suffering. From that point forward, there are professionals that their lives are dedicated to reaching out to those children and their parents or their grandparents who are suffering and dog-capping and feel like they're drowning. That's where I would start.
Thank you. Corey?
Thank you. Yes, I implore you, if you want to, see something done. That's the sirens of our youth crying. That's classic. Hello. Okay. I like that actually. Well done, sound guy. Thank you. All right. So, as far as youth development goes, we've got a really great item on our platform that we think we would love to see some funds from the city annual budget set aside for the youth, specifically for a trauma-informed 24/7 open center that could provide services for children, for families, some of the things that the new West Side Family Center has, but to develop further on some of those things, because we need so much more. There's so much, there's some neglect in families, and there's homelessness, there's substance abuse, mental health issues, a lot compounding together. And I don't think that we can rely only on the county to provide what we need for the kids. We know that, Mary C. Snow, for instance, doesn't get the same deal that you see at somewhere like Overbrook. And if you want to, if you need somebody that knows what kids need, I've been working with children on, entrepreneurship training and new skills, and trying to help kids take their dreams and how do you make a business out of this? What do you do with your life? And I have a lot of great ideas, and I know that Kanawha County schools that they're starting to get a little confused. What do we do for the kids? I know there's maybe a lot of you probably don't know what a Raspberry Pi computer is. We had a conference for Raspberry Jam in April, and a lot of people don't understand what it is, but Kanawha County has a bunch of these computers. They cost less than $100, and you can teach programming on them. Kanawha County has them, they don't know what to do with them. Things like we need to be helping move things forward, because we're just going to get so lost if we don't, step it forward into the future.
And Becky, you're not last or least,
Thank you.
but it's your turn.
Thank you. Do I need that mic? I too have been an educator. I taught 3.5 years in Selma, Alabama. The second year I taught was the first year they integrated the school system. So I totally understand how important it is for young people at all ages. We have a youth council. We've created a youth council at the city so that we can get young people to help guide us into policies and what we need to do to help satisfy those needs and things that they are looking for to help stay here. We've also created the recreational opportunities that we've never had before so these young people can work off some of that frustration. I think Mary C. Snow has some wonderful trauma programs. What we have to understand is when these young people come to school and they fall asleep at their desk, they're not being mean, they're not being ugly, they can't sleep at home. The situation, the environment that they're in just does not allow them to do that. And so we have to be able to recognize that. We have to support our educators. Sometimes we blame the educators. We have to support them. We have to see that those kinds of services are available, the trauma services are available to these young kids early on, and we can't just say, well, we did it in first grade, second grade, third grade. These young people are going to need avenues for them to develop all the way through their life. And those are the kinds of things that I think the city can be beneficial to, creating venues for them to just hang out, to have a place to go. And I guess, I look back there and see Reverend Watts. I mean, he should be having a microphone. It's just, there are just so many things that the city can do, has been doing, and I hope to be able to continue to do that.
All right, I want to thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today. Let's give our second panel a hand.
Heidi Bonnet Adams, Frank Annie, Nathan Jones, and Chelsea Steelhammer. All right, panel number 3. I'm going to ask you to Tell us a little something about yourself, along with, please explain why are you running for office and what do you hope to achieve? Again, ladies first. Heidi.
All right, thank you very much. I am Heidi Bonnet Adams. I'm running for Ward 15, which is kind of the backside of the South Hills from GW out to over Kanawha City. And I grew up in Gilmer County and Hurricane, West Virginia. Graduated from Hurricane High School, and then like many people, I left with my husband, and it took us a long time to make it back. So finally, we'd almost given up hope of being able to move back here, and finally in 2018, we were able to move back. And we moved back because we really wanted to be with our families, our extended families, and make this a better place, see what we could do. We lived all around the country, in Tucson and Virginia, outside of DC, and we just, all those places we lived, they all had problems, but they weren't home. But Charleston was home, and we wanted to come here and to make a difference and make it in a place where our kids could grow up and stay. And why I'm running for office, I have 7 kids. One's in tow here, he's just a month old. So my main motivation was to make a place where my kids, they might have to go away for college, depending on what they want to study, but they can come back. And that they will have a place where they can achieve their dreams here. And being in different places, we've seen that Charleston's a wonderful place. I think if you put it toe-to-toe with any other city and you take out the identifying name, people will be like, oh, I want to go visit that place. And they're like, oh, Charleston, oh, but I already live there. And I think a lot of people sell ourselves short, that this is really a great place and we just don't recognize the things that we have here. And that's why I'm wanting to run here.
Chelsea.
I'm going to try this one. Okay. I'm Chelsea Steelhammer. I am running for Ward 8, which is Ward 10, sorry. We're correcting that earlier for him. On Ward 10, which is around the Capitol and up on the hill and around Greenbrier Street. I am a school teacher. I currently teach 5th and 6th grade math. So it's an interesting age, but as a teacher, I see kids struggling all the time, and some of those things we were talking about in the last panel really resonates with how do we help these kids that have been through so much with so little resources, because they're 8 years old. They don't know how to ask for help and what they need. And I've seen so many of my neighbors and my other Charleston residents struggle, and as a teacher, I want to step in and help them, but I don't have the tools at this point as a regular citizen to arrange a SAT meeting and get them an IEP and get them the things that they need. And on city council, I feel like I have a better chance of actually collaborating with people and figuring out the best way to help those who are hurting. And so that's my main motivation there. I want to be able to seek input from experts, which not necessarily the highest degree, but more the people that have lived with these problems their whole life, or recently the people that are actually on the streets, the people that have lost loved ones to various problems like drug addiction and drug overdose. Because they're the ones who know. Like, I was talking to somebody, I can make all kinds of policies about farming, but I don't know anything about farming. I need to talk to people that actually farm for a living and do that with their livelihood. So we got to turn to the people that know the most about the situation. Top down doesn't always work. You need to start at the bottom sometimes. Thank you.
Michael Farmer.
Good evening, I'm Michael Farmer. I serve as the senior pastor, the senior janitor. I do everything in our church of Risen City, a little small church plant on the west side of Charleston. That's one of our many after-school program sites. I also serve as the Chief Operations Officer of Step by Step West Virginia. We service and have 19 after-school programs throughout Lincoln, Logan, and Kanawha counties in the area. So we work a lot of youth in the rural and the urban settings all across our area there. Here recently, in the last 2 years, we've opened up 3 new locations: Risen City on the west side of Charleston, the Kanawha City Rec Center for elementary school students, and also the Roosevelt Center on the east end of Charleston. Charleston. I serve on the Charleston Main Streets Board. I serve on the board for Mountain Food Bank. So we service all across of our state and our area right there. I serve on another board for Hope for Appalachia, working with those who are dealing with addiction issues and also family causes and other issues in the area there. I serve on Charleston Sea Corps Group, which works with the policing. The big reason I really want to run for council, specifically for Ward 6, is because I've got a little baby girl here. All of my family has moved out of state. I have a grandfather in the east end of Charleston, I have a grandmother in St. Albans, West Virginia, and I have no family here except for my wife and her mother and father in this area. And the big thing for me is that I believe that this area, with some investment, can be brought back to where a place people can dream, work, and grow. And I believe that's what we want to do, is to see young people stay here and also bring people into this area. More so specifically, I ran for Ward 6 because I believe that Ward 6 and also Ward 4 are the most important wards here in Charleston, as they do have the highest crime and issues. But I do believe it has the most hope, and we can continue to work and invest in these areas to bring about change that'll help the city as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Check. My name is Nathan Jones, and I'm running in Ward 8. I moved to Charleston about 7 years ago because I knew it was an arts and culture hub, and that's where I wanted to begin my career. I currently serve as the executive director for the nonprofit Craig Patton House, a historic house museum focused on West Virginia state and local history. I'm also secretary for the West Virginia Association of Museums, which supports 43 museums throughout the state. And up until recently, because I found that I was stretching myself too thin, I was chair for the Association of State and Local History's Leadership in History Awards program. And while I spent a lot of time focused on the past or researching, I pay attention to what's going on here in the present, and I want to work so that we can make a better future. Speaking of, okay, so that's a quick introduction of myself. Why did I choose to run? I decided to run because I wanted to make sure that a representative for our community was present and available, talking to people, or I wanted to make sure that I could serve. My apologies. I thought that there were particular ideals and principles that weren't being represented, at least in social media, where people were just being hateful to each other. And I wanted to make sure that enough people were stepping up so that we could lead our community into a better direction. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to run.
Frank Andy.
First off, I want to thank you for letting me go last. With Annie, I'm used to going first every single time my entire life. So my name is Frank Annie. I grew up in Canal City. My father was a public school teacher. My mother worked for Canal County, worked for Union Carbide. Like many others in my high school class at 18, I left Charleston. Didn't think I'd ever come back. Went and got trained, and I kept missing home really bad. I ended up down in Tallahassee, Florida, doing my PhD, studying the Canal Valley, the chemical exposure here. So a job popped up at CAMC, and I applied for it and got it. And that was 5.5 years ago. And what I've learned is chemical exposure, opioids, Hep C, endocarditis, all of these public health issues are plaguing our community. And we talk about data-driven solutions. We have the data. I've written most of the papers, but I've seen inaction from a lot of leaders around the community. That's why I'm running. I'm running as a public health scientist. I'm not a landlord. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a scientist. I have a PhD. I'm a member of the American College of Cardiology. I have written 6 papers on Charleston alone on the drug overdose epidemic. We have data to have data-driven solutions to solve these issues. It doesn't need to be this way. The West Side doesn't need to be this way. We can have targeted solutions for crime. We produce plenty of papers and plenty of stuff on shootings, on the effect on children. So I'm very passionate about public health, but just because of public health, we talk about Hep C and all this other stuff. This goes into employment as well. I've sat on a few committees that large corporations don't come to cities that are unhealthy. They come to cities that are providing data-driven solutions to make themselves healthier, to make themselves warm and open to others. So if you want to know more about what I've done and anything that I've set up here, I'll be here for the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Okay. How do we balance the need to protect our property and address the homelessness issue and continue opioid and other substance abuse challenges?
So this goes back to kind of a previous statement. So we see these as separate issues. They're interconnected with one another. So you can have collaboration with the local hospitals in town. So most of the homeless that go through CAMC, around 60%, off the top of my head, I have to check that number, are actually, they're suffering from a mental health disorder. If you collaborate with local health institutions, you can start to move that number down. What we can also do is we can adopt what other cities have done with low barrier housing, with actually using different budgetary items to, we talk about dilapidated homes, getting people off drugs and giving them a job to rehabilitate some of these homes. We can do a number of these, or some of them are not all, some of them are, some of them were a collaboration of all others. Now, we have to do something. We talked about up here before where there is less and less services. So homeless, I believe the last survey count was 203 homeless in the city of Charleston. That's the last report I saw, so that's another number. What we can do with the homeless as well is identify and give them some support and actually have services that are in walking distance of one another, because they're in pockets from one another. We had a member of our slave, Joe Solomon, that went out and stayed with the homeless. Corey was in as well for 3 days, and the many things that they had said was the services are across town. So I think we need to do a multi-pronged assessment and actually get at this problem from multiple different angles. We have plenty of psychiatrists that are willing to help. We have plenty of other resources. But this problem can be managed appropriately if, number one, we allow certain other entities to be involved, and we can hopefully means test it as well. If some things aren't working, fine. If some things are working, we start to see the homeless population decreasing and getting them off the street with mental health services, great. But we can do more to means test it.
Heidi?
So I think it's important to meet each person where they are. So as we've said, everyone who's been up here has said, everyone is different and everyone has a different reason why they're experiencing these problems. And so I think it's important to tailor our methods to each person. Some people might need more supports than others, or they might have a better support network. And maybe we just simply need to get them in contact with the support network that they might have lost touch with. But others, they need more a full body, full blanket approach of how they can address their issues. And also, we just can't forget that they're people, that each of these people who we're dealing with, they're not a number, they're not some statistic, they're each a person. And I just remember when I was in high school, I volunteered at Man and Meal, and it's an experience that's always stuck with me. Is one man I was serving, he invited me to sit down with him, and he told me he was a high school science teacher. And so he was doing some experiments to show me this. I don't know how he ended up there, but he was a person, and that's always stuck with me, that we have to remember that part.
That's right.
Nathan?
So I think that the city should be able to put more support services in with social workers. If a social worker can meet somebody before we have to rely on like punitive or like punishments on any particular people, and take care of the root cause, whether it is a mental health issue or if it is a drug addiction issue, then we're not just putting people in prisons or jails. So I just would like to see the city support more social service workers.
Michael?
I think the core of this, and it was a really good study done by Dr. Alfred Christensen with the Icelandic model, and addressing how do you look at your environments and why are people doing drugs. So if you look at the environments where people are most doing drugs, where you look at dilapidated houses, you look at there's not more access to social events and activities, and we've got to look at Charleston and saying that those are part of some of the issues that we face as a whole. So a lot of that is that you have to look at creating better environments for people to live in, and it's also collaborating outside of the Charleston area, because all those people who are facing drug addiction and other issues come from other counties to Charleston because of the resources that we do have. So it is addressing, and it's also looking at, we've got to be in a place where we've been accountable for these last couple of years to just sustain the standard, where we have to start challenging ourselves to look at the systems that are in place, and we've got to grow from there. So I think the biggest aspect is that you have to start having collaboration. I understand that I do an after-school program, and I try as much as possible to stay in that lane, but then after school turns into job creation. It starts to turn into supporting families. It starts to turn into drug addiction recovery services. That's saying, what do I have? What are my times and my talents and my treasures and my resources, and how do I use those to support people? When we looked at Risen City, we said, we've got a building, work with step by step, allow them to use the building to open up a family resource center. And a part of that will be having these hubs across the city with individual peoples who live in those neighborhoods and actually care about their neighborhoods to be a part of the long-term solution. So I believe that's a part of how we've got to address this problem as a whole.
One of the main things that when I've been canvassing has been, when I ask people, what's the biggest issue facing Charleston today? They all say, no, a lot say homeless. Some of them have more compassion towards the homeless situation than others. The ones that are the most compassionate, they want to find ways to get anyone who wants off the street, a way to get off the street quicker, easier, and maybe they don't have to have all the documentation, they don't have to have all the restrictions, but they need to have access to things like showers and laundry and basic medical care. One of the things that the Charleston Campway platform is trying to do is we're trying to get a low barrier shelter and a day center so that people who are homeless or facing homelessness can go, they can do those basic human needs. They can shower, they can chat with somebody about services, they can charge their phones. And one of the things that we also have to do is, we've talked a lot about mental health issues, but if you do not have a home, it's very hard to plan, oh yes, I can make that appointment 2 Thursdays from now. It's hard to say, oh yes, I can definitely get a ride at 8 o'clock. Well, does the bus run at this time? Can I get there early enough? If I'm going to have to walk across this street, is that even really safe? And then all the barriers that come up that those of us who are fortunate to have a home don't necessarily think about. Well, yeah, there are services, but are they accessible? And that's one of the things that we need to actually address as like the people who have been on the streets and are having trouble accessing services. We need to listen to them and figure out how we can better serve them.
Panel 3, thank you very much.
As we move along, we are now going to have our mayoral candidate, Martise Washington, to join us. All right.
Hello.
All right, Martise Washington, I want you to introduce yourself, and I want you to tell us why you are running for office and what you hope to achieve.
First things first, in the house of God. So praise the Lord, everybody. Now y'all can do better than that. Praise the Lord, everybody. All right, y'all not finna play God up in here, okay? But anyway, I'm Martise Washington. A little bit about me is I'm 33 years old. I'm a young black man, obviously. I'm from Charleston, West Virginia, born and raised. Haven't gone anywhere. I see you guys. That's who I am. I'm your neighbor. I'm the guy next door. I'm the person that you don't pay attention to jamming in the car. I'm the person that spots your kid while you're in Kroger's, waving, making them laugh instead of having them cry while you're trying to figure out if you want beans or rice for dinner. That's me. I'm the unspoken person that you never really see in the limelight. I'm just always in the background trying to make things work. A little bit about what I want to do and what I hope to accomplish and why I'm running is, I just said I'm 33, I'm a young black man, and I live in Charleston. You heard a whole bunch of city council members say that they want to hear what younger people want. They want to attract more younger people. Guess what? I'm younger. They want a more diverse community. Guess what? I'm diverse. So the reason I'm running is because I don't see enough going on in the place that I live. There's not enough love on the west side, the east and south hills. I feel like we focus on downtown a lot and a little bit too much. That's not all of Charleston. That's not all we have to offer. We have wonderful walkways. There are side streets that are beautiful in Canal City. We don't take care of those things. So that's what really made me want to run. And what I hope to accomplish as mayor is making Charleston something that everybody wants. I want Charleston to feel like a capital city. I want you to feel like you want to be here. When you go to Cleveland or Chicago, you go there because it's something to do. I want you to feel that same way about the place that you live. Stop it, Mr. Williams, what's that?
All right. We are currently a very divided people, nationally and locally. How will you bridge gaps and build consensus?
The motto for my entire campaign is on my back. Is together, everyone counts. Because that means from the homeless people, unsheltered. That means from the people that live up in South Hills in the $1 million homes. It means from the people that live on the East End. Everyone matters. I want to work with every single person that makes themselves available to me. I will do whatever I can to make Charleston more inclusive. First step is becoming the mayor. I become mayor, people are going to be like, oh my God, West Virginia is not just West Virginia. We're changing, we're progressing, we're molding. And that's how you change the scope of people being divided. You show them better, you do better, you lead better. I'm not going to worry about what you hate or what you don't like. Okay, I understand that, but what do we agree on? How can we move forward still working together? And that's what you do, that's what a true leader does. They put their pride to the side and they lead. They get dirty and they do the work, and that's what I'm here to do.
All right, the final question that I have from you is, what do you see as the greatest challenge facing the West Side and the East End?
The greatest challenge on the West Side and the East End. The East End's greatest challenge is the lack of a grocery store. For years, I'm 33 years old, there hasn't been a Kroger's on the East End for 20 years. I went to the Kroger's on the East End. I've been in the fast check that was over there. It's gone. We have all this money, AARP money, to spend. But we're not worried about where our people are going to find food. We're not worried about where somebody's going to get their next meal. We're going to have a whole food desert on one side of our town. So that's one of the biggest issues that I see on the East End, other than the potholes and the streetlights. That's major all across the city. On the West Side, the biggest thing I don't see is leadership. We're lacking leadership. We're lacking community, and we're lacking togetherness. And I'm here. Every time something goes wrong, I'm there. You don't ever have to call me because I'm there. I'm in my community, putting my feet on the ground, making sure people are okay, hearing, listening, trying to make a better way for everybody. Also, one of the reasons why I'm running for mayor is because I go to city council entirely too much. Entirely too much. They don't hear me. So my dad taught me something before he passed away. He died when I was 13. My dad told me, if people don't hear you, make them see you. And that's what I do. I make people see me in my community. People believe in me. Not because of what I do. People believe in me because they can see me. And that's the biggest issue on the East End and the West Side.
Martise, I just want to thank you for coming here and sharing your thoughts with us. Let's give him a hand.
All right, the last panel, I have Mike Pushkin and Richard Lindsay, the state representatives. All right, Mike, start with you first. Give them a brief introduction about yourself.
Sure.
And why you're running for office.
I'll try to make this quick. My name is Mike Pushkin. I'm running for re-election to the House of Delegates. I do not have an opponent in the primary, but I just really want to thank Pastor Watts and the congregation here for opening up their house for us tonight. And I want to thank the Black Voter Initiative and Dr. Smith and the Charleston branch of the NAACP Tuesday morning. Everybody that helped put this together, because there haven't been a lot of candidate forums, and this is how democracy is supposed to work. We have to hear from you, more importantly than you hear from us, in order for us to be good representatives. That's why I want to continue my role as your representative. So I can come out and listen to you, more importantly than tell you what I want to do, listen to you and carry that voice to the House of Delegates. Because too often, the voices that get heard at the House of Delegates are the ones who can afford to have expensive lobbyists. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in hearing from you. But quickly, with the rest of my time, I want to recognize some other candidates that are here that haven't had a chance to, or going to have a chance to answer questions. I see a couple candidates for City Council. Larry Moore is running in Ward 4 here on the west side. Mike Barrow's running in Ward 6. Robert Sheets is running in, I can't remember what they rewarded you as, but you're running over on the East End and downtown, I believe. Kayla Young, my colleague in the House of Delegates, running for re-election in the 56th district in South Charleston, South Hills. I've got 30 seconds. I'm trying to get everybody. Rusty Williams is running. He's in Nitro Cross Lanes and part of St. Albans. I see Zoe Shavers is running for judge in the 13th Circuit. Ryan White's running for re-election to the Board of Education. I know I'm missing somebody. Oh, okay. So, Marianne Cleaver's here somewhere representing the Democratic Party. So I'm going to try to be a team player. I'm also running for chair of the Democratic Party.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here tonight. I want to echo Delegate Pushkin's statements. I want to thank everyone for putting this together. The West Virginia Black Voter Impact Initiative, thank you. This is important. This is democracy. I also think it's important, too, to give a round of applause to all the candidates up here answering questions. It's not easy. Miss Adams is here with a 6-month-old. I learned something new. Becky separately, I had no idea that you were a teacher during integration in Alabama. That's good information to know. My name is Richard Lindsay. I am the incumbent senator of the 8th District. That district has changed. Still parts of Charleston proper, so East End, West Side Hill, and the Dunbar Institute, Nitro, Northern Putnam, Southern Jackson, all of Rome, and all of Clay. So that is my new district. I'm running, and I think I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, so it's Delegate Pushkin and Young, but we are running, or I am running, because too many people are leaving this state, too many of our kids, too many of our kids are getting lost in the system, whether it be foster care or juvenile system, and too many of our folks who are working and playing by the rules are barely getting by. And so, you know, the opposition or the other party in control would like to, reduce income taxes but increase your sales tax. Well, I don't think that's how it works. I don't think it should work like that. I think people who are putting everything that they got forward and trying to put food on the table should get every benefit. I believe in a reduction of the sales tax, for example. That's just one aspect. And, as far as folks living on fixed incomes, I've advocated for cost of living adjustment with Delegate Pushkin and Delegate Young, and then also eliminated the state tax on Social Security benefits. Thank you.
This legislative session was fought with bills designed to create culture wars. Today, do Black Lives still matter in West Virginia, and how does that inform your votes?
To answer the second part of the question, yes, of course it can matter. And the fact that that's even a question is troubling. The fact that that's even a question is really troubling. And I was really troubled by this past session, and we knew it was coming when you have, and I don't want to sound too partisan, but when you have two supermajorities, and the governor's office also controlled by that same party, it makes it so folks don't necessarily have to work together. They don't have to take into consideration with the minority party our thoughts and concerns and our ideas of how we can best help the people that we represent. Because every member of that House of Delegates represents about the same amount of people. And every member of the Senate represents about the same amount of people. We should all have an equal voice when we're up there. And when one side has too much control, they're running a lot of bills that aren't really necessary unless they're just trying to get people stirred up, to play off of people's fear and anger. And that's why you saw unnecessary bills like, for example, this bill that they called an anti-racism bill, which is something that they've copied from other states to really dictate how teachers teach certain subjects in schools. And it's all meant, if you read the actual bill, it's not based in policy. It didn't make any sense. It just created this way for people to lodge complaints against their teachers or against the school, but they didn't care about policy. It wasn't about policy. It was all about politics, and that's what I wanted to go up there and continue to push back on. And so we need to work on policy, what's actually going to help the average West Virginian, what's going to improve their lives. That bill, and many of the bills that they've introduced, it doesn't do anything to improve the lives of West Virginia. All it was meant to do is help people get reelected. Luckily, that bill, that disguised critical race theory bill, died with 6 seconds to go in the session. That's why it died, not because they didn't have the votes for it, not because they didn't push for it, but luckily because of some stalling tactics that we used over in the House of Delegates, really led by my friend Kayla Young, which was when her move to have everybody read bills, that cost them that last 6 seconds, and that's why that bill died.
Yes, Black Lives Matter. And, we were all, not a couple weeks ago, at Capitol High School talking to juniors and seniors of the civics class. Martise was there, and Delegate Young was there. A lot of folks who were running for city council were there. I don't know if their experience was like mine, but a lot of students said, I feel unwelcome here. I don't feel like I should be here. I feel like there's not a place for me here. And that's the result of all the politics of division. That's the result of, making public teachers the enemy. That's the result of saying, well, you're not religious enough, or you're a different type of person. And I can't, for the life of me, understand that, because I know Delegate Pushkin's like this as well, I represent people who disagree with me. I mean, that's just a fact. I represent Republicans, conservatives, liberals, Democrats, people who are, very religious, not religious at all, heterosexual, homosexual. And at the end of the day, I may disagree with this issue or that issue, but how can I speak for them if I don't recognize their place in society? If I don't welcome them? If I don't accept them? And unfortunately, that type of division runs rampant in the State House. And I know that, again, both Delegate Pushkin and Delegate Young and I do our best to push back on it.
We are so glad that you took time out of your busy schedules to be here with us today. And we will remember that you did come and be a part of our forum tonight. Give them a hand. There was a cutoff, and we didn't want to hold you here till midnight. So we had all of our candidates that registered, and by Sunday night, we said, that's it. But we have other candidates that are here, and we want to recognize them for taking the time out of their busy schedules today for coming and spending time with us. So we're going to ask you to stand, and I'm asking you to come here and face the audience and tell us your name and what you are running for. Judge, come on up. Let's let everybody come up so that they won't be blocked.
I'm Zoe Shavers. I'm running for Circuit Court Judge. I know people are ready to go, but I will be down in the refreshments area, so I will be available to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Stand right here. We're going to let you stand. How's that?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Karen. My name is Victor Gregoracci. I'm currently your city treasurer in Charleston, and I'm running for re-election. So thank you very much.
My name is Ryan White. I am currently on the Kanawha County School Board, and I am running for re-election for the Kanawha County School Board.
My name is Rusty Williams. I'm the patient advocate on the West Virginia Medical Cannabis Advisory Board and also a board member at the Women's Health Center of West Virginia. I'm running for House of Delegates in the 59th District.
Hello, I'm Michael Farrell. I'm running for Ward 6 City Council. I just want to say hello to everybody. Thank you for having me, and we have more to come. Thank you.
Robert Sheets, Ward 8. I'm running for re-election, and I vote for the people and stand up for you all the time.
Yeah, my name is Larry Moore, and I'm running for Ward 4. And my campaign is changing the narrative because where I live at Ward 4 on the west side it really has a bad name. It's not that bad of a place. So I'm really just trying to change the whole narrative and brighten that area up and change a lot of things. So vote for Ward 4.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kaylee Young. I'm running for re-election to the House of Delegates in District 56 moving forward. That is parts Charleston, parts South Charleston, all the way to Tornado. Don't ask me why. We tried to fix it. And I'm happy to answer any questions after we get through this. So thank you.
Chuck Overstreet, running for my third term, Ward 3, West Side Hill.
Hey, I'm taking the mic. Candace Maxwell, she couldn't be here today. She wanted to apologize that, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Google, her email went to one of those social tabs or whatever, so she was really sad she couldn't be here. She's running in Ward 5 for City Council. That's like Cato Park, Edgewood area, and she's fantastic. She's worked with Step by Step. She's, as a Vista, she's currently in school for social work. She's a foster mother, just got placed with a new baby. She's got a new baby just in the middle of her campaign. So please remember Candace Maxwell, Ward 5, if you're up in the Edgewood area.
We are going to get a picture of this, of all of our candidates at the end. But let's see, Jennifer has something that she needs to say.
I just wanted to say something on behalf of Councilwoman Caitlin Cook. She was planning on being here this evening, but she had a family situation arise, and she just wanted me to just pass along her regrets for not being here. But she is running for re-election as a Charleston City Councilwoman at large.
We do have a question for the candidate that is running for the school board. And I'm going to ask this question: what do you consider to be the most urgent problem facing the school system in this coming year? Or what can be done about it? And it says, for candidate Brian 1.
I'm hoping that's just because I'm the only one. The most urgent issue that our school board, our school system has for this upcoming year is the fact that we need to get our kids back into the right mindset after COVID. We need them back into the emotional well-being that they were beforehand. We need to get them academically back in order, and we need to devote the resources necessary to get those kids back into learning and to being able to have the social interactions that they had before COVID. It has been set us back a lot. And that's a short term, and then long term, our system needs better facilities. We have had a history, a 20-year history of deferred maintenance, and we started doing something about that with our last levy election, and we're putting more money into our facilities, and we need to build more newer facilities, and we need to have better facilities in our school system like there are in other parts of the state, and that's basically why I'm running.
My question was, how are you going to address all of the children that are getting assaulted? Because what I hear from a bunch of parents is they feel like their kids are unsafe at school. So how do you plan on addressing that issue?
The way to address that, is to make sure that our administrators and our teachers are have the resources that are necessary to make sure that our children know that they're support ready. I'm sure that the children that are being assaulted need the support, the mental support and the social support. So we need to make sure that they have the resources, our teachers and our administrators have the resources to give that support and to hopefully change the atmosphere in our school system.
All right, we have a question here in the audience. This Cynthia Kane, who is a long-time teacher in Kanawha County Schools.
Yes, Mr. White. I want to know, why would it be, let's see if this is how it is.
Estine.
I would like to know, why wouldn't certified teachers be one of the main problems of Kanawha County schools and keeping them there and having the schools made safe for teachers and students. I just want to say that I am a substitute teacher. I retired 2 years ago. I am not really retired. 2 days after I retired, I returned right back to my school. September, right after my husband passed, I returned right back to my school. We do not have qualified and certified teachers in Kanawha County schools, probably not in West Virginia. So that's a big problem. And one of the ways to alleviate that problem is pay teachers more, make them safe, and make the students safe. And I would like to know, what are your plans for that?
Yeah, it's true. We have a huge issue with getting certified teachers. And like she said, it's in Kanawha County, and the rest of the state actually has even more trouble than we do. And this is across the country, really. I agree, we need to pay our teachers more. I would hope that the legislature would continue to give raises. They gave a raise this past session. I think it should have been more. I know our friends that were here wanted more, but the 5% is at least something, but they deserve to be paid more, commensurate with what other professionals in other states are getting paid. I think we also need to have a more of a public discourse showing that our teachers are valued, and make sure that people know that they have one of the most important jobs in our society, other than being a parent. I mean, the parents have the most important job, I'm sorry, but the teachers are second to that. So we need to make it so that the teachers feel like that they are as valuable as they really are, because they are our future. The teachers help shape our future, and that's one thing we need to do, is to have better public discourse about our teaching profession and public education in general. There's too many attacks on public education, and we need to push back on that and make sure that our teachers feel valued so that we can get more teachers in our system.
Thank you. We have another question.
Yes, thank you. First, I want to say to your response, parental de locos is parents standing in place of teachers standing in place of parents. I think needs to be brought back. That's a big issue, I think, within our school system. Not your fault, but I think just collectively. But I have a question for Mr. Zan. Mr. Zan, you have brought up the concept of the 24-hour trauma center. As I understand the concept behind that, as a mental health professional, two-part question. Number one, to look at a trauma center, first there has to be trust established for one to feel comfortable to come into a setting as such, regardless if it stays open for 5 hours or 24 hours. What is the platform for that, and how do you plan for that to be manned for 24 hours here in the city, and where does the funding come from?
So I believe the amount that we want to allocate, and Dr. Schneeba-Smith actually and India Frith helped write this piece of the policy, and I believe the amount is $2 million that we think we need to allocate from the city annual budget. And the city annual budget has a little over $100 million a year. There's a lot of that money that's going into policing and administrative costs, and I think most people that we talk to agree that it's that we need to take a close look at these budgets and see, is there any corrupt spending? Is there any, something that we can't just throw more money into policing, more money into administrative costs, and expect for crime to go down. We have to actually look at what's going to actually solve crime. And I'm getting in the weeds here, but what I'm saying is we want to, solve problems at the root level. And so something like, as opposed to putting that money into policing, putting money into, and I will say that I want to definitely protect wages and pensions, but we want to look at, what about service vehicles and some of these other costs? Can we divert some funds over to actually helping children? And this 24-hour, it would do so much, because when kids are neglected for decades, that's how we grow someone that, takes a risk with a gun and decides to shoot somebody, and we lose someone that was part of our neighborhood. And the generational trauma that just trickles and trickles and trickles, and we have to stop it, and it's not going to be met with criminalizing. So we want to create these services like this 24-hour trauma center. And I don't think it would not be called a trauma center, but it would be certainly trauma-informed, because we do want kids to be welcome there. We want it to be like a community center, entertaining. We want them to be able to have, Wi-Fi with fast internet, because right now kids are going to, McDonald's and sitting in parking lots to do their homework, and it's just ridiculous, because, luckily the library is finally opening. And what a time for that to be closed during the pandemic. But we can be doing a lot more, and as I've heard a lot of people say, it matters where it is. The west side and the east end you know, it's 1 or 2 miles, but that means a lot when you don't have a car, when our transportation is suffering. And I know I'm going off, you know, maybe the question here, but hopefully I've kind of covered it. Do you have any other kind of?
I think the main thing as a mental health professional, not your trauma, I think of trust. How do you plan to establish trust for one to come in to address the trauma? Because I think that's the biggest key. In order for someone to identify and address their trauma, there has to be trust to come in there to get those services.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the answer to that is working with the organizations that are currently working with students and these populations we want to serve. Because a lot of the pieces are here, but they need more fuel. So if we can tip the scale a little bit, push funding in the favor of some of the organizations that are solving these issues at the root level, then I think we can see some real change. And yeah, have that trust to actually say, hey, I've been here with you. I'm your neighbor, or I'm your, you know, a teacher, or have some connection to you in some way. I talk to so many people that are working with different kids or the same kids in different capacities, and it just all needs to be connected. I'm really grateful for that West Side Together project, which I'm also a creative consultant for, because, and as Martise said, we do need leadership. We need the West Side to come together. We need all Charleston to come together. I driving under that bridge, the interstate bridge. I mean, I'm sure all of you feel it. What, you know, especially if you're walking, just trying to get to the east end and walk across the concrete desert to get to, you know, the other side of town. It's vast. We need to connect everybody.
Thank you so much. This is democracy. Give our candidates all a hand. We're going to ask you to go up the steps and ask all of our candidates to please come forward so we can get a group picture. And as we get this group picture, I just want to say, we're looking forward to having more community forums and voter education programs throughout the summer, and we welcome you to come and be a part of that as we approach the general election. Let's have everybody to come up. I want to thank our committee. Let's have the committee to stand, and we're going to have Shaniqua, as we're taking the picture, to have our closing comments. This has been a phenomenal evening.
Well, I'm just going to stand here to give some thanks. First, let's give thanks to our great facilitators, Ms. Karen and Ms. White. Candidates for coming out. And most importantly, we thank you, community, for coming out. So give yourself a round of applause. Though I'm standing here alone, this wasn't done by myself. This was done with a bunch of hands. Many hands make the work light. And so I would like to acknowledge those groups that was part of putting this together. Rise Up, the Tuesday Morning Group, Citizen Action Group, the Pan-Hellenic Council, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Kappa Alpha Psi, Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, and Omega Psi Phi. We also have our Voices podcast, the NAACP, Citizens for a Clean Election, and we'd like to thank the Links for supplying the refreshments. One last thing. I know I told you that we said voting plus action equal power, so we have some upcoming events. Get your phone out, your pen, so you can write this down. We have strolls. It's early voting season now, so if you didn't go out to vote, get out to vote. And don't only vote, encourage someone else to vote. We have stroll to the polls May 7th at noon. May 10th is the last day to vote. June 9th, we will be having the Black Voters Impact Initiative. We'll be having a Zoom presentation. For the last 5 months, I have had conversations with 80 individuals throughout the state, how we're mapping and getting some information on how we can collectively come and build our space of politics. So all of you that signed in tonight, we have your contact information. We'll get that link to you. June 14th, I know there's an interim session in May, but June 14th, we're organizing to go to interim. We cannot wait till January to keep being defensive at the legislature. We must engage. And so we're starting to organize in that space. So if you leave your contact information, we will keep you informed on how the people can become part of the People's House. And lastly, on June 18th, the Poor People's Campaign is sponsoring a bus up to Washington, D.C. for a march. It's free, so if you're interested, please see Ms. Williams about that. And raise your hand. Got it. And last but not least, you know, knowledge is power. Black Voters Impact Initiative, we have these pamphlets. Don't take one for yourself, just take a few to give out to individuals. These are good all the way through election season, have important dates, a lot of myths that people don't understand when it comes to voting, and also a conversation starting in the middle. Because we don't talk about getting involved in legislation and politics. And these are conversations we need to have, not only in election season, but throughout in our families, at dinner, in our church setting. So we hope these pamphlets open up conversations and also push us to more action collectively. Thank you all, and before we leave, we're just going to have our Reverend English end with a benediction, and make sure you come fellowship in the fellow hall.
As I prepare to give the benediction, I first want to recognize the pastor of Grace Bible Church. Reverend Matthew Watts is a good friend, but he's been a consistent crusader in this community. And the work that he has done and the impact that he has made has left its print on this place. And so we wanted to acknowledge that. Again, for the vision and the energy of all the planning personnel, the invigorating, courageous, and contagious spirit of all who have worked with Karen, Dr. Smith, for this moment. They need another hand of gratitude for their work. So now let us bow for the benediction. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on our way, Thou who hast, by Thy might, led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. We thank You for the vision and vitality and the initiatives that brought all of us here. But we thank You most of all for the intention, the integrity, and the impact of what we have shared here. As we leave, we know the issues still challenge us. But give us the will to be connected and to build community. Bless all who have come to hear, and may Your Spirit rule our thoughts